oppose SB 210, which would revise the criteria for determining eligibility for pretrial release from custody.
Okay, so we'll adopt the CLA report and resolution on that item as well. So like I said, we're holding item 7. We will continue item 10. So on the remaining items, without objection, that'll be the order. What I had mentioned earlier will be how we dispose of those items. So what I want to do now, in fairness to individuals who have come down today, I believe that's item 10. We'll do, and I need those cards.
Yes.
We'll do 1 minute for each speaker. And I should also note that this will be continued on the council agenda an hour from now. So there'll be no action taken on this item today. Okay, and then let me apologize in advance if I mispronounce the name. Okay, so please accept it. So is it a John Balonis? Please come forward, sir. Okay, I have something that says item 10, but no name. What about a Michael Preisner? And Fatima Bakhit? Yes, sir. Just state your name and then proceed.
John Balonis. And I am opposed to the City Council taking action on this resolution because I think that if they do that, then they should do another resolution, which I have written up, and I think that I would like to read that.
Can we get the clock?
Israel has violated hundreds of UN resolutions concerning illegal settlements, and they have also violated dozens of resolutions by the UN Security Council. And if these things are not brought up, I don't know why this other resolution is being brought up.
So look, appreciate you coming down. You said you had a resolution. Would you like to give a copy to the sergeant?
You know what? I misplaced it. I'll have to bring it later.
Okay. And feel free to send it. So if we could have, I think it's Michael, Fatima, and is it a Jefferson? And Jefferson, I don't even want to try. I'll let you pronounce the last name. Yes, sir. Identify yourself.
Yeah, my name is Michael Preisner. I live in downtown Los Angeles. This resolution, if LA City Council passes this resolution, it is sealing their place in history, an event, the war on Gaza, that will be enshrined in history as one of the greatest examples of war crimes, internationally recognized crimes against humanity, against the Palestinian people by the Israeli government. It is undeniable that they have bombed mosques, ambulances, hospitals, homes. And if you do your research and you look at a map of Gaza and all the places that are targeted, it's literally entire villages have been wiped out. The entire strip has been targeted. There's 2,000 people dead, over 450 children. And then the lie that human shields are being used, which international human rights monitors and journalists have denied and said they've seen no evidence of, that's an attempt to whitewash those crimes. And so it's essential for a resolution that condemns something that's not even confirmed, when actual confirmed, recognized human rights crimes are being taken place by the people that you are defending. That's going to look very badly for you in history.
Thank you. So now if I could get, no applause. If I can get Fatima Jefferson, and I think it's a Susan Hartley. Please come up. Please come up and identify yourself.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Fatima Bakhit. I'm the Arab American from Arab American here. This is the first time in my life come and I speak over here. I feel that all Arab, everybody, all American, they have to come and let everybody hear their voice. I'm here because I feel injustice. I've been live here for over 26 years, and when I see this resolution yesterday, I got shocked. United States, it has to be neutral, doesn't take any side. That's unfair. We see all the world see what's exactly going on in Gaza, how Israel it's attacking the Gazan people, how it's not about Hamas, it's about a human being live in Gaza. Kids has been killed every single day. The F-16, it's been targeting everyone. You know, we have to take an action against Israel, not to support Israel.
Thank you for coming. So now I need, and Jefferson, hold on. So is Susan Hartley, please come up, and you will be followed by, I believe, Doug. I think it's Kaufman. Please come up. Jefferson, the mic is yours, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to demand that the City Council do not pass the resolution because it's an immoral resolution. We are here in solidarity with the Palestinian people who are the real victims of the Israeli aggression. And as a citizen and a human being, we have to demand that justice be done and they stop the killing of children, targeting civilians, all the crimes that Israel has done towards the Palestinian people, who, we must not forget, are being occupied by Israelis. And this resolution will do nothing to promote peace and justice in the Middle East or anywhere in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. If we could get Ms. Hartley, Mr. Kaufman, and John Parker. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I oppose this resolution. It's shocking that the city of Los Angeles would even be considering it. I'm opposed. I do not condone genocide, even by Israelis, and that's what's taking place against the Palestinian people. And I don't think that you should be supporting genocide either. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. So if I could get Mr. Kaufman and Mr. Parker, and then it's, I believe, Karen, and I can't quite make out the last name. Yes, sir. Mr. Kaufman?
The Los Angeles City Council has absolutely no place taking a stance on this issue unless it's to say that the siege should be lifted immediately, because that is the stance that thousands of people from Los Angeles have taken every single week in the streets, shutting down Westwood. And the fact that you're ignoring it by even proposing this resolution, by even putting it on an agenda, by even bringing it forward to be considered, shows exactly where you stand in terms of history. You stand against the people, and it's very clear. And if you pass this resolution, that's how it's going to be remembered. I implore you to not pass this resolution, to not even consider it, to drop it today, never bring it up again, because we don't want to be a city where thousands of people are taking the correct stand while the government is taking an incorrect stand, and that's a bad situation for you.
Thank you. Oh.
We're going to be standing tomorrow as well, 1 p.m. in Hollywood, marching on CNN to demand an end to the lies, the very lies that you've put in this resolution.
Thank you. So, again, if we can, Mr. Parker, followed by Karen, last name begins with a P, and a Lauren Stainer, maybe? Yes, sir. Mr. Parker, right?
John Parker. I'm the West Coast coordinator of the International Action Center, a board member of the Southern California Neighborhood Council. In 2009, I was part of an international delegation that witnessed war crimes by Israel in their war against Gaza. We saw many buildings hit with depleted uranium weapons, and as in Iraq, the level of cancer has soared. But that's not the only weapon used today that violates international law. Dime weapons that virtually liquefy your organs and cause a most painful death target children, like the children on the beaches targeted by the Israeli military. All of these are violations of international law, as is the occupation of Palestine. If you decide to pass this resolution when it comes up, I and many neighborhood council members will have many resolutions condemning this city council for aiding and abetting the most disgusting and blatant racist genocide the world has witnessed since the indiscriminate bombing of the Vietnamese people with Agent Orange, or to go back further, since the Nazi Holocaust. Thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for coming, sir. Please, and if you'd identify yourself, and then
I'm Karen Pally.
yes.
So I was actually shocked to see this resolution because how could the City Council of Los Angeles have any idea what actually happened in Gaza when the investigation hasn't even begun? I can't imagine where you got your information, since according to the legislative analysts and staff members of the council members, there was no investigation done in order to bring up this resolution. So I've been working for the last 10 years or so with a Muslim charity in Los Angeles. Last week, the family of the chair of that, Dr. Leila Al-Mariyati, who's received national recognition as an interfaith leader, were murdered, 10 people, including many children, in Khan Yunis, in their home, by an Israeli bomb. Why did the Israelis bomb a house with a family in it? This situation in Gaza
Finish up your last thing.
has been going on since 1967. The Gazans live in a concentration camp, and they must be allowed to be free. Thank you.
So if I could have, please, no applause, if I could have, just identify yourself, and if you'd stop for a minute, I kind of lost my place. So what your name again?
Lauren Steiner.
Okay, so Lauren, just hold 1 second. I then want to request a James Lafferty, I think it is. And so I have Lauren, and I have some cards. Generally, the way things work, once we start a hearing, we don't take cards that were submitted late. But since you've come down, I want to afford you the opportunity to speak as well. So if you could start, and I'll try to get us back in order.
My
Yes.
grandfather wrote in his autobiography that he was the first person approached by Henry Bernstein, the executive director of the United Jewish Appeal, in 1946. Quote, "He explained to me that the liberation of Hitler's victims from concentration camps necessitated transporting them to other lands, particularly Palestine. It was to be the greatest life-saving endeavor in the history of private philanthropy." Mr. Bernstein was looking for a one-time gift of $15,000. My grandfather gave $50,000 in 1946. It was one quarter of his entire net worth. He writes in his autobiography that he became a millionaire so that he could give more money to Israel. And my father followed in his footsteps. But my father and grandfather were humanists, and from them I learned my Jewish values of tolerance, compassion, justice, and fairness. And if they could see what Israel has been doing to the Palestinian people, they would be horrified.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
That's
you
it?
very
Don't
much.
I have more?
No, you get a minute. Everybody gets 1 minute. If I give you more, then I have to give others more. So if I can get Mr. Lafferty to please come in. Is it followed by Irene, followed by, I believe, a Wendelin Emrys? Yes, sir.
Jim Lafferty on behalf of the National Lawyers Guild. This is an example of the use of the big lie. It's just reversed the actual facts. The United Nations has already undertaken an investigation into Israel's war crimes. Those crimes include disproportionate punishment of the people in Gaza. No sooner did the UN establish zones where the civilians in Gaza could come to be protected from the onslaught, the disproportionate onslaught from Israel, gave the coordinates to the Israeli government, and the Israeli government then used those coordinates to bomb the very UN facilities in which people were hiding. So much for the argument of human shields. It's the largest open-air prison in the world. There is no place for those people to go. They must be free, and until they are free, they'll continue to be like shooting fish in a barrel. So the notion that this resolution, as I say, turns truth on its head. It is a lie. It is propaganda put out by AIPAC, clearly, the Israeli propagandists, and this council should have nothing to do with it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming down. So do I see Irina, Wendelin, and I'm going to try to spell out the last name here. It's Foisle. If you could get in line, please identify yourself and speak.
Hi, my name is Irena, and I was really shocked to see that LA City Council wants to pass a resolution like this, where Israel has violated all the United Nations resolutions. They have put the Gazans in a huge concentration camp. There has to be a resolution to release the siege on Gaza, let the people live freely like normal people. They're just entrapped in this huge prison with a big wall around them, and they have nowhere to escape. Israel has bombed 3 hospitals, United Nations schools. They've been bombing ambulances, hospitals, schools, and children. Can we pass a resolution against them, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Please come and identify yourself.
I'm Wendelin Emrys. I'm a resident of Lake Balboa.
I am neither a Jew nor a Muslim. I am, however, a person who values the rule of law and justice above all things. I believe that as our city council, you too should look to truth and justice for all. This resolution is unjust and should be quashed. This resolution states that Hamas uses civilians as human shields, but there are no real independent witnesses to this, whereas there are multiple independent witnesses to Israel using Palestinians as human shields, as reported by the UN, Amnesty International, Euromid observers, and reporters. Even the Israeli High Court found that the IDF routinely used civilians as human shields. This resolution also states that Israel gives warnings to civilians to flee areas that they will bomb. Even these so-called warnings are a fiction, because while telling people to get out of harm's way, Israel bombs the U.S. positions where they go for sanctuary, even after the UN gives them multiple times the addresses of these areas. Israel is supposed to be a member of the UN, yet they have the effrontery to bomb UN properties. I ask this council not to put forward this resolution and to quash it.
Thank you very much. So I'm also looking for, I think it's Ariel and an Anthony. So yes, sir.
I'm Greg Foisey, F-O-I-S-I-E, in your card.
Gotcha.
I wanted to thank the council for taking the time to hear all of us, and I just want to add my support to the comments made before me in regards to Resolution 10 that's been continued. I'm really concerned about what Israel has done the past 40 years to the people of Palestine, particularly the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and I really feel that the resolution, the way it's stated, ignores the facts, the disproportionate use of force, which is against the international law, the occupation of the occupied territories against international law. I request that the council rescind consideration of the resolution, and I want to thank you for your time today.
No, thank you for coming down. So please come forth, identify yourself. And did I call a Esty Chandler and a Anna Mae Nelson? Please identify yourself. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Ariel. Okay, so in addition to this resolution obviously favoring the country of Israel, this resolution and a whole series of other resolutions, press releases, and events favors the Jewish people of Israel over Palestinians and even of people from Los Angeles. So for example, on August 5th at an event to stand with Israel, in a press release by Blumenthal, he said he mourned all innocent lives lost, but he only called for standing in solidarity with the people of Israel and not the Palestinians. Also, he, quote, played the familiar air raid siren, evoking the sensation that has led millions of terrified Israelis into bomb shelters as nearly 4,000 rockets have fallen from the sky. He failed to mention the fact that Palestinians are also being bombed. They have no air raid sirens, and when they are warned by Israel and do flee, which of course this current resolution makes no acknowledgement of the fact that Gazans do flee because they want to live, they have no bomb shelters to run into. And of course, Blumenthal gives no mention to why Gaza exists in the first place and why there is resistance against Israel. He also condemned the kidnappings of the 3 Israeli teenagers, but of no beaten, murdered Palestinians or of anyone else. Thank you so much. So, identify yourself, sir, please.
My name is Anthony J. Litwinko. I'm a constituent of Mr. Koretz, and I represent the Friends of Sabeel Los Angeles, a Palestinian Christian peacemaking group. This resolution is incomplete. It leaves out documented evidence that shows that Israel itself uses human shields. If you want to pass the resolution, please include Israel. You must wait until the investigation of human rights violations takes place as per the recommendation of the UN Human Rights Council. I would hope that the City Council would have a judicious and humane response to the violence in Gaza and call for an extended truce and a lifting of the siege and a negotiation for peace that includes all belligerents. Israel already is responsible for an extensive humanitarian crisis. Call for a truce, call for ending the siege of Gaza, condemn the violence on both sides, but call for an end to occupation, and above all, please act out of a spirit of brotherhood and community and on behalf of all the citizens of this diverse community.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So if we can now get Ms. Chandler and Anna Mae Nelson, and the last speaker will be Mr. Herman. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Esty Chandler. I'm here representing the Los Angeles chapter of Jewish Voice for Peace. We're here to bring to the Council's attention that the whereas clauses in the resolve to this resolution are nothing but self-serving talking points of Israel and its public relations spokespeople to draw attention away from Israeli forces carrying out attacks that have killed nearly 2,000 civilians, attacks that have been condemned by most of the civilized world and characterized as war crimes by various independent bodies. Israel often uses artillery which cannot be precisely targeted on the very densely populated residential areas, all in violation of international human law. You all have the NLG letter that's been delivered to you. We hope that you will read it. It is no secret that congressional resolutions supporting Israel are often drafted by the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, and we would like to know from Bob Blumenfield and Paul Koretz who drafted this resolution that is not based in fact. We would hope that Los Angeles would continue its reputation for supporting human rights and international law worldwide.
Thank you so much. Ms. Nelson, please come forward. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, City Council. My name is Anna Mae Nelson, and I'm here in behalf of the Palestinian people because what is happening is so bad. And this new adopted form that you're talking about is ridiculous. It's so far out of line. They're not even looking at the fact that this is an occupied country and they have the right to try and dig their way out. Since they can't get out, they also have the right to send rockets. But our country is furnishing Israel with weaponry that is unbelievably big and bad and strong. And we also have a shield up that even if they sent rockets from Palestine, they're homemade and they're not able to break into the shield. So even if the people of Palestine feel afraid and they have to go down into a bomb shelter, they're not going to get bombed. And there has been no deaths and no horror there at all. But Gaza is just depleted.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Herman, our last speaker on this item.
How dare we not promote peace and justice for the racist and discriminatory action of this city council is taking the wrong stance. And that is, you are a local government and you should not be involved in the political strong arm of what Congress and Obama should be taking care of, which is this issue under Hamas and the other terrorist organizations in violation of international humanitarian law. So, again, the public here is speaking about two issues, and I don't get into either issue, because the bottom line is this: the refugees, the homeless population in Los Angeles, throughout the state of California, and throughout the United States is horrible. That should be the local issue, that you as a city and elected officials should take the responsibility of dealing with the homeless people, refugees on our streets today, and that's the real issue.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As I said a few seconds ago, ma'am?
I signed a card.
And your name was?
Ruth Sarnoff.
Ruth, you're the last speaker. I'm going to give you a break, so you have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to bring to your attention the similarity in the treatment of Palestinians to what took place in South Africa. And our country took sort of a blind eye to that. In fact, Mandela was on the terrorist list in the United States until 2009. Now we honor Mandela because, well, it's a little different period. Let's don't shame this council and this city all over the world where people have hit the streets about the enormous violence. I've been watching the violence on Al Jazeera. I would suggest if you don't have Al Jazeera or DirecTV that you go someplace and find it, because you will see the legs and heads and everything of babies, of newborns, of everybody. And the infrastructure, water, gas, electricity, and all that, and housing and schools are gone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What I want to say is I appreciate each and every one of you. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and give us your thoughts on this item. Again, I want to assure you that that is appreciated. I want to restate that no action will be taken on this resolution today. It has been continued, and it will be continued on the council floor. There will be no vote. Because of it being continued, we probably won't speak on it at all when we get in the council. That's why I wanted to afford everybody here the opportunity to speak before this committee, because this is the committee and we have jurisdiction over the item that you have so much concern about. So I look you each in the eye, in the face, and say that no action will be taken on this item today. In the event that it comes back, you will be notified, or we will make sure that you're notified way in advance so that you can organize or structure whatever you want. So again, thank you for your words. Thank you for your information. And more importantly, thank you for taking advantage of your right as a resident of this great city. We have learned a lot from you. And again, thank you so very much. Now, with that said, we're going to move on to item 7, which was held by cards. Again, thank you all. In fact, you should give yourselves a round of applause. It was a pleasure dealing with you. So, Ruben, if I can have you and David make your way towards the podium.
And for the record, item number 7 is to support legislation which would implement commercial property tax reform.
Okay, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ruben Gonzalez. I'm here on behalf of the LA Area Chamber of Commerce. There are so many problems with this resolution, I can barely touch on them in 1 minute. First one I'd like to focus on is government should not be in the business of just seeing the possibility of grabbing funds and then say, oh, well, because it's there, we can do it. $6 billion, as is laid out in this resolution, comes from somewhere. It comes from businesses, especially small and medium-sized businesses that lease the space where the property values would be increased. So although the resolution says it's protecting small business, it in fact is not. But the more insidious thing about this resolution is there's no piece of legislation to deal with here. When you're talking about legislation, when you're talking about public policies, especially that really impacts like this, you have to actually have a cost-benefit analysis, see unintended consequences, try to fix problems and mitigate them. We had that happen with Raul Bocanegra's efforts in Sacramento this year. But this is creating an ideology. It's setting an ideology for the city that says we've already made a decision, and that makes it hard to go to the table and do real public policy.
Thank you, Ruben.
Please vote no.
Yes, please come forward.
Good morning. I'm David England here on behalf of the LA County Business Federation, and we represent 268,000 employers throughout the county. including 88,000 right here in the city of Los Angeles. I know you've received letters and information from a number of our allies laying out the many problems with this resolution. One point I want to focus on is the claim that this resolution will protect small businesses. The resolution states its intention to shift the tax burden from homeowners, renters, and working families to corporations and commercial landholders, but this reflects a gross misunderstanding of how businesses operate. Small businesses typically lease space from commercial property owners who pass on tax increases in their rent. Therefore, any legislation you might support conforming to the intent of this resolution would actually add to the burden placed on small businesses during this sensitive time when they're still trying to claw their way back from the Great Recession. These are just some of the reasons why we urge you to oppose this resolution. Please don't put LA City Council on the side of undermining the business progress we're trying to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comment on that item. Members, no comment.
Well, no, my comment is
yeah,
this.
Go ahead,
I
Mr.
think we
Lamont.
should take the next steps. But any of the public speakers who spoke after the meeting, I'll be happy to talk to you after the meeting and continue the dialogue. I think it's important that we look at it. If you look back at the long history since 1978 when there were split roles, there's been a distinct damage to a lot of the institutions. But at the same time, the importance of what takes place is the commercial community as well. But I think this is a very important topic that we push forward.
So, Ruben and David, I do want to thank you for coming down. Madam Clerk, if there are no objections on item 7, we'll adopt a CLA report and resolution. So without objection, that'll be the order. And that brings us to what item, Madam Clerk?
And that is the last item on the agenda, number 11.
If I could ask our general manager from ethics and Tristan to come down, and the gang, they've been waiting patiently in the back of the chambers. So if you could come up, please take a seat. And before we start, I do have an individual that wants to speak on this item, and it would be Dr. And I'll let you, so let's hear from Dr. VG, Dr.
Huffnagel.
Huffnagel. Oh, I could have done that one. Okay, Doc.
Thank you. 4 years ago, I came to this area and begged for help. I got no help. My council member did nothing for me. I'm now here to proudly tell you that the Ethics Committee, we need the Ethics Committee to be a part of self-reflection. RICO action has taken place in Los Angeles to cost you multi-millions. $600 billion filled the pockets of Nova Star Lance Anderson, the president. And what was he doing in LA? He was stealing the loans of your poor, your middle class, actually stealing them. How did he do it? Really simple. He took Laguna Beach Financial and other brokers who were mortgage brokers, told them, hey, I'll give you a cutback on wide yields, and I will take your earnings from $3,000 to $60,000 on each loan. All you have to do is open your file cabinets. They opened their file cabinets and they canceled the loans pretending to be the homeowners. I will be at the commission every Tuesday with the police. But you guys need to know this.
Your time's expired, but thank you for coming down. Okay, what I think what we want to do right now is, Ms. Holt, we want to turn the floor over to you. You can give us an overview of the items that you have sent to this committee. And I'm going to ask Mr. Weezer to kind of step in. I'll be gone for 2 minutes. So it's good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Heather Holt, the Executive Director of the Ethics Commission, and I'm pleased to be with you this morning to talk about the Ethics Commission's recommendations regarding the campaign finance laws. This may feel a little bit like, didn't we just do this? And if it does, you're correct. This is our second set of recommendations in the past 2 years. In 2012, we undertook the first comprehensive review of the campaign finance laws in 20 years, and a number of amendments were made to the laws as a result of that overview. Both the City Council and the Ethics Commission requested that following the 2013 elections, we would conduct another post-election review so that we could see if there was fine-tuning that needed to be done after we'd lived with the new laws for an entire election cycle. And this is that post-election review. The campaign finance laws worked very well during the 2013 elections, but the Ethics Commission does feel that there's some room for improvement and makes some recommendations for fine-tuning. Most of the recommendations are technical and they're designed to codify existing practice and advice, but there are some substantive recommendations, and I want to briefly highlight some of those for you. The Ethics Commission does make some recommendations, some substantive recommendations regarding political communications. For example, it recommends that independent expenditure committees and other committees that are active in city elections be treated the same way as candidate committees in terms of requiring them to disclose their email addresses, their social media accounts, and their websites, and also in terms of providing disclaimers on the social media accounts that they use for campaigning purposes. The Ethics Commission also recommends that the laws be clarified to specify that you can use a social media account for campaigning purposes unless it is being paid for, hosted by, or sponsored by the city. And it would also require disclaimers on sites that are not hosted by, sponsored by, or paid for by the city that are used for campaigning purposes. The recommendations include some recommendations regarding slate mailers. There is a recommendation that a slate mailer paid for with campaign funds be filed with the Ethics Commission so that the public has a comprehensive understanding of the political communications that exist about a particular election. There are also some recommendations regarding disclaimers. One is to exempt from the disclaimer requirement both slate mailers and clothing, so that if there are political communications on either of those, the city's disclaimer language is not required. And the Commission also makes a recommendation to permit an abbreviated disclaimer on electronic communications that are too small to reasonably fit the entire disclaimer. There are also some recommendations regarding fundraising. For example, the Commission recommends extending the post-election fundraising period for primary elections by 3 months so that the post-election fundraising window for both primary elections and general elections ends 12 months after the date of the election. But most of the substantive recommendations do affect the matching funds program. One of the recommendations is to permit candidates to officially opt into the program at any time between filing a declaration of intent to solicit contributions and the end of candidate filing week. Currently, candidates can only opt in officially during candidate filing week, so this would significantly extend the amount of time during which candidates could do that. The Commission also recommends that contributions that candidates use to either qualify for the program or to be matched with public funds be acceptable any time during the fundraising window. That would also provide more time for candidates to collect these contributions because the limit is now 12 months prior to an election. The City Council the Ethics Commission also recommends increasing the maximum amount of matching funds that is available to each qualified candidate. The amounts that exist currently were established in 1991 when the program was first adopted, and they have not been adjusted at all since then. The idea of increasing the maximums was discussed during the 2012 review, but because the 2013 elections had so many open seats and so many candidates, we weren't certain that we could guarantee that there would be enough matching funds for qualified candidates if we increased the maximums before those elections. We did have enough matching funds for those elections, and we do project that we will have sufficient matching funds for qualified candidates in the future if we adopt the recommended increases. Just a couple of other things to note is the Ethics Commission does also recommend increasing the rate of match, which is the rate at which private contributions are matched with public dollars. Currently, the rate is 2-to-1 in a primary and 4-to-1 in a general, and the Ethics Commission recommends that the rate be 6-to-1 in both the primary and the general. This was also discussed during the 2012 review, but again, because of the magnitude of the 2013 elections, we weren't certain that the matching funds trust fund could sustain that kind of rate. But we believe that moving forward, that is a rate that will be sustainable, even given an increase to the matching funds maximums. And a faster rate of match provides benefits both to candidates and to staff in terms of filing claims, processing claims, and issuing the funds. And then finally, I want to note that there are 3 provisions of the matching funds program that are new for the 2015 elections, so the election cycle in which we're currently in. The first is that contributions that are used to either qualify for the program or that are matched with public dollars have to come from individuals who reside within the candidate's district. And for citywide candidates, the district is the city. And this is a change because there hasn't previously been a residency requirement on these types of contributions. The second new provision is that candidates are required to obtain contributions of $5 or more from 200 individuals within their district, and nothing even close to this has existed in the program before. And the third one is that candidates be required to obtain the signatures of 1,000 registered voters within their districts in order to receive the higher rate of match. If they don't do that and they qualify for the ballot with 500 signatures, then they would receive a 1-to-1 rate of match in both the primary and the general. So the first 2 changes will make it more difficult for candidates to qualify for the program because they are reducing the pool of potential contributors, and they're also imposing a minimum number of contributions. The third one does not affect qualification criteria. What it does is make it more difficult for candidates who are qualified to get the higher rate of match. And this will have the effect of creating sort of a tiered system where qualified candidates are treated differently for the first time. Historically in the program, once you qualify, you're treated the same as everybody else who has qualified. But with this requirement, qualified candidates will receive different rates of match. So some of them will be able to receive public funding faster and with less fundraising effort than others. This requirement also creates challenging operational and budgetary impacts for the city clerk's office, which is required to verify the signatures. Typically, the vast majority of candidates qualify for the ballot with 500 signatures. So this will essentially double the amount of work that the city clerk's office has to do without a commensurate increase in the amount of time in which they have to do that work. So in order to avoid an onerous program for both candidates and for staff, and to avoid treating qualified candidates differently, the Ethics Commission does recommend eliminating the third new provision, which is the signature requirement. And that is just a very brief, very quick overview of some of the key recommendations. I'm happy to answer questions. There is a quick guide that provides a little more detail about the key recommendations, and that's an attachment A to the transmittal. And I would just finally note that because we are in the middle of the 2015 elections, that our recommendation would be, and based on advice that we have historically been given, that any changes to these laws be done so that they can take effect prior to candidate filing week, just to give candidates in this election cycle sufficient notice of what the rules are that apply to them. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Well, first let me thank you all for coming, that it was a pleasure to spend quality time with you yesterday. And the reason why I had to leave my chair is because I had a conversation with one of the media outlets regarding your president's task that he has given me, which I and assure him that I'm formulating how I'm going to proceed with that as we speak, and I will request that he assist me. I'm thinking about hearing. Anyway, we'll talk. But yes. With that said, we've got. I neglected to call on. I think one of my own constituents, Leela Peterson. Please come forward. This is our last public comment card on item 11.
And I'll make it brief. Thank you, Council President, and thank you to the Ethics Commission staff for the good work that you've done to streamline, improve, and strengthen the matching funds program. We support the recommendations put forward by the staff in conversations with various neighborhood councils throughout the greater Los Angeles area. They also agree that these recommendations would strengthen the matching funds program and incentivize candidates to spend more time talking to their constituents rather than raising big dollars outside of Los Angeles. So we support the recommendations, and we urge you to move forward in strengthening the public financing program and amplifying the voices of everyday citizens here in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Good to see you again. Okay, Mr. Wizar.
Thank you. I too want to thank the Commission and the work of the staff and the wonderful work you've been doing. I've been involved in these issues since I was elected. It was a great interest of mine to find a way to support more local support of their elected officials, and I think we've come a long way to do that. I have two questions. My first is the projections you make for the trust fund, or we assume that we will have the same amount, or we will need the same amount of money till 2025 based upon what we're spending in 2013. Now, in those projections, did we factor in that this program may actually cost us more or less in the future? I assume it's going to cost us more. So was that factored into your forecasting?
Yes, it was. Thank you for that question. It was projected into the forecasting. The charter requires a certain amount of money to be dedicated toward the matching funds program every year, and that amount is automatically increased for CPI adjustments, so it does get bigger every year. It's about $3.4 million a year at this point. Another change that was made to the charter in 2011 was to eliminate the cap on the matching funds trust fund, and that's where we get these larger numbers on the projections, because in addition to annual increases in the amount of the appropriation, there is no limit on the amount that can be accumulated in that fund, and so we will have larger and larger amounts as we move into the future.
Yes, thank you. And my second question is, you suggested that we would make these changes and do them as quickly as possible, since the campaigns for 2015 have already begun. But people have been fundraising, would you apply the same reasoning that you did by saying we want to do it before November because that's when people file, so that people know what the rules are, but people have already started the game? It seems like we're going to be changing the rules in the middle, not in the middle, but the game has started. People are campaigning, people are fundraising. Would it impact that at all negatively by having people now abide by different rules?
Well, it will certainly affect candidates in the 2015 elections. We don't think that it would be a negative effect. What we did in 2012, because we were in a similar situation, is we applied the changes that were adopted prior to candidate filing week, which is typically the first week of November. We applied those retroactively to that entire fundraising period, to the fundraising window that was in existence at that time. So there would be some changes, and there might need to be some strategic rethinking on the part of a campaign, but from our perspective, the benefit would be positive. It would be a positive benefit, because there would be some greater benefits to them in terms of what contributions they could use to qualify, and when they could opt in and that kind of thing. So yes, there will definitely be an impact, but we believe it would be a positive one.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, President.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
I'm just reacting. There was something about paying people to vote. Is that in the news?
Well, that's not in this transmittal, but we had a discussion about that with President Wesson yesterday.
In commission?
In our commission meeting, and our commissioners are at least very enthusiastic, at the least, about having a discussion about that.
I just think it's unethical. Okay, I just got to say it. I know that the city attorney stopped me. But I also think you should make people pay if they don't vote, and they can't complain. One complaint. They can't take one complaint, you know.
Well, Australia is with you. They impose a tax on people who do not vote. Yeah.
So, Mr. Labange, I just found out about what happens in Australia yesterday. I think it's like a $15 fine. Their voter turnout is 90%. So, before we give our thoughts, this committee We are the ones that are going to travel throughout Los Angeles and talk to people and get the information. We are headed for a very fascinating conversation with the residents of
I
the
could
city.
send you to Australia because I know Qantas
Now, I
Airlines,
may
but I know
send you.
You don't fly. But anyway,
I don't.
On the issue, the only thing I want to say is it's very difficult because all the uncertainty for candidates. So the certain as we could be, I think it's very important to apply that to it. The one thing that I wish you would do, and members, and I don't know if this is an amendment that I could put in here, but I believe anyone who signs up for matching funds should, be part. The first piece of mail they receive should be a list of the issues of the district, which maybe this is not maybe this cycle, but please think of this in the future, that the neighborhood councils develop that maybe list the top 15 things in the district. Rent control, whether you put in closed streets, whatever the case what is, the issues, and then that first piece of mail that you pay for, the Ethics Commission, sets the standard of where everybody is. Because a lot of times they take the mail, Mr. Wesson, and then they say things about you that are not true. And it's public dollars that are, and your name's on it. And then they have to spend more money to try to get the truth out.
Thank
you understand what I'm saying?
That's a good, no, I do
And
understand.
not this cycle, because I think you're right on top of it. But I think if you're going to take public money, you should have the first notice, a general form from the city of Los Angeles, and try to get the neighborhood council involved. And this may be something you do like a whole year prior to the election cycle, so you could say you have to turn in that report in neighborhood what's important to you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you, Mr. Labange, and you bring up some very good points. Again, I want to thank you in particular, Ms. Holt, and your team, the A-team, for all of the hard work, and the commissioners that I know that are really committed in trying to make sure that we're the best city that we can be. With that said, Mr. Labange, some of this based on concerns that you mentioned. So what I would recommend is that we bifurcate this item and that we approve all of the recommendations with the exception of the following, that we will hold in committee and have a further discussion, which would then afford you the opportunity to talk about the things that you said. So the things that I think that we hold would be regarding to slate mailers, and that's Municipal Code 47.7.32A, matching funds, Muni Code 49.7.29, and another reference to matching funds where it relates to 49.7.27B. And we will, furthermore, we'll requesting that the city attorney draft an ordinance based on the instructions and transmit that to our committee. So without objection, that'll be the order. Mr. Huizar?
Yes, Mr. President, the drafted ordinance by the city attorney will come back to committee before it goes to council?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Okay, so again, thank you. And that'll be the order where it relates to this item. So where does that bring us now, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. That completes all the agenda items and brings you to general public comment.
Mr. Sachs, Ruth Sarnoff, and Mr. Herman. Again, thank you, Ethics. Please come forward. Ruth, if you're closer, you can get here first.
I'm going to catch Ethics, but I'll be right back.
Yes.
I wish to speak on the situation in Skid Row.
Please.
And I want to say that I've been following the public discussion and the press, and it seems to me everything is based on long-term promises, and that's all we've been there and done that. Right now, we need fresh, clean water. We need some kind of public drinking fountains in central Los Angeles. We need to get a situation where the availability of immediate things like food, shelter, and that may just mean shade and places to congregate and feel safe for homeless people in this city and in this county. We are right up on the top of the register for having the most homeless people in the country. It's about time poverty was dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sachs?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. And two things. One, Councilman Weezer brought up something about, you were talking about, oh, damn. Foundation? No. What was the DWP? Oh.
It's called trust, Arnold. I trusted you.
Yes, exactly.
I trusted
Exactly,
you,
trust.
Arnold.
So, thank you, Mr. Labange, because I'll talk about that too. But the newspaper stories say DWP is a trust, it's a nonprofit, it's a foundation. So if you have that kind of ethics and you don't know what the hell you're talking about in the first place, how can you make a ruling? Back to you, Mr. Labange. Thank you for your recommendation about listing the problems that occur in each council district. So, using these initials, BFD, if you get elected and how long have you been in office? Almost 12 years, sir? How many problems exist when you started? How many have you crossed off your bucket list? I don't know. But let's take a poll of all the elected officials. If you start with a list and you don't do anything, all you got is a list.
Mr. Herman.
Fellow Angelinos, all you within the crowd, Sergeant of Arms, Mr. Johnson didn't allow me to speak on item 11, a violation of the Brown Act 54963, starting at 54950. But let me get on topic of what a public comment non-agenda item is that it's a lot of crap when the public officials don't want to take our cards and listen to us, the public. For we are public interest, and we have a right under our civil rights, under our first Constitution right, to speak on anything and use, yes, critical, offensive, bad language like Eric Garcetti did during the parade, right? What did he say? What did he say? But I'm not going to get into that. So do business for the public. I won't use the F word or the F bomb, but I'm letting you know that we have a right to do so. So fuck it.
John Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. It's a BF day. I won't tell you what F stands for. There's children in here. If the mayor was here, he would use the word in front of children as long as it wasn't his kid, his Asian kid.
Hey,
HollywoodHighlands.org. On the issue, it is unconstitutional to pay someone to vote. Now you're going to you're going to have a lottery, you're going to turn our voting system into a lottery. What are you going to give out? Alcohol, a bottle of cheer, a box of fruit? It is against the law. I cannot buy a vote. I cannot give this man $50 and ask him to vote a certain way. If you put this on the ballot, the whole country's going to laugh at you. You have to give away a bowl of fruit or a basket of fruit in order to get people to vote. I don't want people who aren't interested in voting to vote. And all the studies show that the people who don't vote have the same opinions as the people who vote. Hollywood Highlands.
That concludes the public comment of this committee. This committee is over. Good morning.